Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. If you're just joining us, we've been talking quite a bit today about just silly and ridiculous rules that HOAs have had, but also states and cities. We've had some fun, but we're going to turn our attention to another matter, and this is dealing with a homeowners association where the board president unilaterally made a decision to fire the manager working for them without consulting others. And I think it goes to the heart of how a board relates to one another, and that's what we want to kind of deal with here with our remaining time here this morning on Where You Live. We'd love to hear from you about this too, Tony.
Yeah, call us at 651-289-4488. There's still time for your comments.
And also just like to let our listeners know that we are, of course, broadcasting live from the Concierge Landscape Studios. And the second hour of Where You Live is also brought to you by Extreme Exteriors. Well, let's deal with this. This is a homeowners association in Orange County, so it looks like we're talking about California. It says the president of the Lake of the Woods Association fired the on-site manager from their homeowners association. But another board member says the decision is up to the entire board, not just its president. Last Friday, Jeff Flynn, president of the board of directors, gave the manager, Ted Wessel, the option of resigning or being fired. Wessel asked for time to think it over, and by Monday refused to resign.
What do you think he did over that weekend?
I think he was probably kind of counting to see where
he was calling other board members.
Yes,
okay.
And it says yesterday, Flynn, the president, sent an email announcing to the association the general manager of Lake of the Woods is no longer working for the association.
So he, in effect, fired him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the manager said, I question whether or not he had the authority to fire me. But he was claiming he had the votes. But another board member, Pat Rowland, said that even if the majority of the board thinks Wessel should go, Flynn lacks the authority to fire this man without a vote of the board of directors. And I think this is at the heart of
the crux of the matter.
Yeah. And how a lot of associations can run themselves. It's so easy when someone is in an association after a while that people know that not a lot of people volunteer.
Yeah.
Not everybody show up to meetings.
Yep.
And so after a while, an association is the board is anxious to get moving with a decision, and they'll just make a decision. And many times, even though that decision's made without contacting others on the board, it's because it's not a controversial one. It's no problem or issue.
Sometimes those decisions slide by, even though the proper procedure has not been followed.
But it's not the way it should happen.
No, it shouldn't.
Yeah,
because it leaves it open for criticism and problems, legal problems.
Yeah, and it is not a way to act. It's very interesting to take a look at not only in most governing documents that I've seen have something written about how the board should relate to one another, how they are to act and meet. There's even standards for a quorum for the board. We always think of the annual meeting where all homeowners come together. There needs to be a quorum.
Yeah.
There needs to be a quorum for the board as well.
That's right.
To be able to make decisions.
Typically, a majority of the board has to make the decision.
Yes, yeah. And that is an important feature. You'll see that the governing documents generally will state that there needs to be so many days given for a notice for board members to be able to attend a meeting. And in some ways, because we're talking about the day-to-day operations, it is very important that this relationship between the board is is worked out and is going smoothly.
And that the steps are clear cut. Now, do you have any objection to board members discussing an issue outside of the board meeting?
No,
Because I'm guessing this president probably called other board members and probably got a majority to agree with him.
Oh, yeah, probably.
It kind of sounds that way.
And that's what happens a lot of times, but I think there's a couple things that I think of. One, every once in a while, yes, there's going to be an emergency, a need to meet to discuss something because something's time sensitive and can't wait till the next monthly board meeting. But, by and large, that really is few and far between. I mean, how many times are buildings going away? Are they being sucked up in the ground, never to be seen again if a decision is not being made? No, it's not.
That doesn't happen very often. Even if the board feels like that's what's going to happen, usually that's not the case.
Yes, and generally speaking, there's usually someone who's impatient on a board.
Sure.
And so they want to try and categorize
Sure.
everything as the emergency.
Sure.
But then that causes a different kind of habit to form. When you stop and think about it, if you give the board time to think about what the item is going to be, they know what's on the agenda, they have time to attend the meeting, that means they have time to think, to have thought about it. They have time to talk to their to members and neighbors around
Sure.
them to poll them.
Sure.
To
See
get-
what the consensus is.
And then be able to discuss something at a meeting. All of that is taken away, and you are instead trying to, give precedence or preference to the idea that things need to be done quickly.
So, yeah, you're sacrificing the process for the sake of expediency, and that's not always the thing to do. However, I have to say, I actually researched this issue a few years ago because people were worried about the board having discussions about an issue outside of a meeting. And I found that corporate law says, indeed, board members can discuss an issue outside of a meeting. You can talk to other board members and say, what do you think about this? Have the discussion. But the decision must be made at the meeting. And that usually means someone has to voice a resolution. There has to be motions made and a vote of the board. So there's some expediency there if you can do some of your discussion in advance, but then you also have the opportunity at the board meeting to bring up your objection or your support if you want to.
Yeah. Now, again, the state statute in Minnesota has also addressed this as well. They've made the distinction that if there's a decision that needs to be talked about, it must be brought up before all board members, and you need to receive their thoughts in writing to verify that things have everybody's
For
heard.
every decision?
Oh, outside of the board meeting. So if you technically that's the case. Again, yes, that's the case. Does that happen? Probably not. And again, it won't be an issue until it is.
So have you gone through that process where board members, you're saying they discuss it outside of the meeting, then they have to bring to the meeting their written opinion?
Oh, no. But
I misunderstood.
If in other words, I'm giving an example. This year, snow needs to be moved, and there's going to be an impending snowfall, and you can't
we
wait
don't have
till
any room for it.
Yeah, and so it's going to cost another couple grand. You need to get in writing the decision of everybody on the board.
Because you have to make a quick decision.
Yes. And
I see.
Even though 3 out of the 5 is all you normally need, you need to get in writing something from everybody. 2 of them can write and say, I don't want to do it.
Sure.
But you have to have something in writing from all 5.
And so that's how you make a decision outside of the board meeting.
Outside of the board meeting.
Gotcha.
That
Okay.
way it can never be said that you're circumventing
You're leaving
authority.
anybody out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, we've got a little bit more that we want to talk about on this subject, and then finish our remaining moments talking about how can you effectively work with your property manager or management company to get the most out of that relationship. More on Where You Live with Gene and Tony after these messages.